Hello and welcome to the Rose Rehash. That's right. Every Monday night after the Bachelorette, I recap the show, I give out awards, and I take your audience questions. If you have a question for the end of the episode, tag me and we'll get to it at the end of the show. So let us know what you're wondering, what you're thinking, what you're asking. We want to hear from you. Also, I'm on the road. I'm at Mohegan Sun this weekend. I got shows coming up in New York. I got Boston, I got Austin, I got Dallas, I got Baltimore, DC. So jaredfreid.com for tickets. Also, if you are at Mohegan Sun this weekend, I'll be at Comics Roadhouse this weekend doing shows. So let's get to the episode. It is late. We got to get to this. The finale. I thought it was a good finale. I thought it was interesting. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, tensions are high with how things left last week. We left it where Greg left the show. Katie says, I'm leaving to book my tickets. So now we come back to the Dome of the Undateables. All the crowd there. Katie's on stage. Katie, how you feeling? What's going on? She says, in the moment I was a mess. And they go to the episode and they show her she's sad, but she's going to stay. That's basically what come to the conclusion. Katie's staying. She's going to keep going with the season. Okay, that's fine. They tell the men, they tell Justin and they tell Blake, hey, Katie's staying. Now the men know. Okay, we're going through with fantasy suites. Now, at this point, you're looking at the two guys left, and it does feel like the party's gone on too long. Like she's made her choice. But we're going to go through with the season. We're still going. So Blake gets a one-on-one date. They're both going to get one-on-one dates, is what they're informed. Blake goes on his one-on-one date. They go to like paint fighting, which it seems like a date that would be fun for like a minute. Like you'd throw one paintball at the person, then go, what are we doing? Do we have to keep doing it? We have to keep running around. I'm tired. Like just paint in my eye. I have to go. So then they do that. Then they get into a hot tub in the middle of the desert and they start talking. And Katie's telling Blake, okay, so Michael A left. Sensitive Greg left, and I really had, kind of felt like I was going to leave this season. Blake is not exactly a wordsmith. He just looks at her, he goes, wow, that's a lot. And you're like, Blake, give something. You just feel like Blake is just sitting there the whole time in the hot tub being like, just get to the fantasy suite. Just get to the fantasy suite. And you're like, you see that they have a connection. They have an obvious physical connection. But you're like, what do they even talk about? Like, I don't even think Blake even said anything back. They just started making out. So then they go to the dinner date, and Blake tells her he loves her. And, Blake, it took him a while to get there. He kind of hemmed and hawed of saying, I love you, and it's hard for me to say. And then Katie goes into her speech about how she wasn't going to say it till the end, but she's making an exception now, and she says, I love you to Blake. Now, this is kind of one of those things that you go, okay, this is kind of what Greg was asking for. Your defense was that there were other men you were dating. When you're on the date with Blake, Justin's still there. You're still dating him technically. Like, based on your technicalities and all in the rules you had, you going against those rules shows Blake how much you're into it. Now, the feedback might be that Katie is on somewhat of a rebound and feeling so hurt by what just happened and with Greg leaving because he said, I love you, and he got nothing back, that she's like, I don't want him to leave too. Now, that's a fair argument. That's a fair argument that you go, Greg hurt her in such a way that she now has some sort of like PTSD with I love yous and now feels she has to respond. I don't know, but I'm just saying in this point of the show, you go, well, you didn't even have to say I love you to Blake. You could have just, kept doing what you were doing and abided by your rules. But if you did love him, you do love him in that moment, then good for you. That's what anyone would want in other parts of the shows, she sends people home. So that's not within the rules of the show, but whose rules matter? Who's making these rules? Where are they written? So Katie does say, I love you. They go back to the fantasy suite. There's maple syrup on the bedroom, the nightstand, and it's like, oh, we're gonna use maple syrup in the bedroom. They wake up in the morning, they're cuddling, they're having breakfast in bed, which is not comfortable at all. Like, if any of you want to eat with your sitting like a capital L, I mean, you're out of your mind. Nobody wants to eat sitting up in bed. It is the least comfortable position, even if you have the trays. Do you want to eat with your legs out like you're doing the sit and reach for the national, fitness exams? No, that's not a comfortable position. I want to be in a chair. I want to be sitting. Go. So they do breakfast in bed, and we're done with that date. They love each other. You know, Katie comes over to Caitlin Bristow, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so satisfied." A weird conversation, if you ask me. Oh, oh, he fit the bill multiple times. She says it's like, okay, okay, we get it. I'm all sticky from the syrup. You know what I mean, and I don't mean syrup. It's like, okay, Katie, it's enough. So then we come back to Justin. Justin, Katie decides she's going to. You can tell it's over for Justin. We don't. I mean, none of us know what Justin is even still doing there. Justin then is waiting for Katie. Katie comes out. She doesn't jump in his arms. She sits him down. We got to talk. I mean, what could you be talking about on The Bachelorette when you say I got to talk? And then they sit down, and she's like, "You're gonna go home." It's a nothing breakup. It should have taken. It could have been done in 3 minutes, but they got to fill time. Justin goes home. We come back to the dome of the Undateables. Justin's interviewed. Justin tries to create some drama out of nowhere, saying that he felt that he was like still there on a technicality, that she let him stay because other people left. And it's like, yeah, that's not Katie's fault. Other people left, so they didn't have rose ceremonies. So you're there. You stayed. That's kind of what happened. What drama are we trying to create? Then they go to this fun video of showing Justin's reactions with the eyes. Fun. They're now best friends. No harm, no foul. Okay. Now we go back to the show, and Blake is going to meet Katie's family. So Blake comes with flowers and a gift, and Katie prefaces the meeting by saying, "We're all very casual. We're all very real." And that's all she says. Blake walks in. Katie's mom and him hug. And then her aunt is there, Aunt Lindsay. Aunt Lindsay will not even hug Blake. Will not even. And what becomes very clear right away is that Aunt Lindsay and Katie's mom are deathly afraid of men. And that's my opinion. The way they spoke, and it's like a little bit of a doth protest too much type of thing. When someone has insecurities, which it seemed like they had, which, listen, anyone can have insecurities. I have them as well. But we all wear them on our sleeves a little bit. And they were wearing theirs, no question. They're actually mean to Blake because of their insecurities. Because Aunt Lindsay takes Blake aside. And the mom is saying, she says, we don't put ourselves in a position where we rely on men. Well, you can just do that and not have to say that. She's been your daughter for 30 years. She knows the lessons you've taught her. You have brought her up. You should trust her to make the right decisions based on how you've brought her up. To say on camera, we don't rely on men. It feels like they're trying to let us know. It's almost like they're saying it to remind themselves. I mean, Aunt Lindsay pulls Blake aside, and she's mean. She goes to him, "You flunked on 2 other shows. You just came here because you have a vibrator." And it's like, Blake handled it very classy. I thought Blake was perfectly nice. He was trying. Aunt Lindsay disagreed with literally everything he said. She's like, "What do you want to do? What do what's going to happen when it gets hard?" And he's like, "We're going to work through it." And it's like, it's okay if you disagree with Blake's view on how they're going to take it. I mean, what's Blake going to say? What do you think? He has an action plan for when marriages get tough? Does anybody when they get married? The Aunt Lindsay didn't even give him a chance. She was mean, and it was all insecurities based. They're basically looking at Katie being like, "Every man will leave you. Do not trust a man." And you're like, "Okay, I mean, this is a little harsh." And listen, you can believe that, but to put it on Blake, it's mean. He didn't deserve that. All he does is love Katie. And it got to the point where it's like they were like, "And you got to get into our circle. You got to earn it to be with us." And it's like, who do you think you are? What do you think? You're the Rockefellers? You think Blake is after your trust funds? Is that what you think? He's trying to get, what do you want him to sign a prenup? Like, I don't think that's the deal there. It was very off-putting to be perfectly honest. And Blake handled it well. He gives, it ends with, the mom seems sweet enough. I understand these all come from a place in their past, and that's understandable. But it was just a lot to put on Blake. So the one amazing thing we found out, and it came out right away. They go, "What do you do for work?" And Blake goes, "Well, I'm unemployed." And it's like, what? Like, dude. Like, do you, like, is Katie looking and going, yeah, what? Like, that's the thing that you can ask about. Hey, Blake, how are you going to provide for a family, for our daughter? That's an appropriate question. Asking him what he's going to do in a hard marriage, like, he doesn't know. How about, where are you sending your resumes? What would you like to do for a living? Why are you going to Africa when you're unemployed? Does being a wildlife manager make any money, or is this just these are all fine questions that make tons of sense, that aren't even that judgmental. They're just, hey, we want to make sure our family is taken care of, and, and lives in a household that you're not leeching off of her. That makes sense. No, but that really wasn't talked about. So then we go to this weird ceremony where Katie and Blake are going to write down their fears and then burn them in a like 30-foot statue of the Saw doll. Like, it was I don't know, and it was weird because Katie was like, "This might be very serious date." What's serious about that date? What does that even mean? So they read their fears, and you know, Katie, her fear is of not being loved, and it makes sense in that moment why she was so kind of. It made sense that it felt like she went to Blake because he worked the hardest for her, and that's a tough thing, and that comes up later. So now they burn their thing in the haunted statue, and we're gonna have Blake is gonna go look at rings. Now Blake looks at rings, and this is when he starts to freak out. He's looking at the rings with Tayshia. Tayshia's looking at him. We have Neil Lane is on the cell phone, and we see Neil Lane. He gets his big plug, and he's looking at the rings, and he's like, "Oh my God, what am I gonna do?" And Tayshia's like, "So what do you think she'll like?" How the fuck would he know? He doesn't know what she likes. They've met like 3 times. So then he goes to the rings. He freaks out about the rings. I don't know. It's got to be tough to watch that after the fact. You watch someone that you're engaged to literally having a meltdown while looking at the rings, being like, I don't know, this is a big decision. Yeah, it's a big fucking decision. So we get done with the rings. The car pulls up. They do this long thing as if Blake's not going to do it. Blake ends up getting engaged. He gets on the knee. He gets the rose. They hug. Tayshia and Caitlin act like they're the reason they're together, which is like a very weird thing to see 2 other people get engaged and be like, "You're welcome. That was us." And it's like, you were on Instagram in your room the whole season. So now we come back to the Dome of the Undateables, and Greg is pulled in for an interview. Greg, they didn't even give him a dressing room. It was bizarre. They had him walking and pacing in a hallway. Like, I kept waiting for one of those sandbags from backstage, like, to fall on his head. So then he comes out, and Greg is pretty measured. And the one thing Greg did, and I thought it was a mistake, Caitlin asked him, "Do you have any regrets?" And I don't know how Greg watches his reaction on TV and doesn't think that he was mean, because he was. He absolutely was. Now, you want to say manipulative, you want to say gaslighting, you want to give it a term, you can do that. I am not going to do that. That looked like an argument where someone acted badly. And I think, to make someone into manipulative, I only know him from the show. I'm looking at one moment. Everyone gets a bad moment in a relationship, and I would say that was a bad one. He acted to me like a brat and a baby. Now, for him not to see that, that's a problem. For him to look at himself on camera saying, "You make me sick," and saying the things he did, you got to go, Greg, dude, you did fuck up a little. Like, you have no regrets. You would argue the same way you argued like on that show? You would do that again? So I didn't like that. Then Katie comes out, and Katie's not having it. She is very upset with Greg. She basically, you know, she claims she didn't know what she was going to say, but she seemed very prepared for this moment. The problem I have with Katie is she claims that she says that Greg said he got no validation, but he was like, you got a rose, you got the first impression rose, you got a date. Every week on the show, you got validation. But here's where Katie misses the mark. Katie is making Greg's point. Katie's saying she's referencing all game show things that gave Greg validation. Greg was asking for non-game show Katie to give him validation, and she wouldn't do that. That was his big problem. If how he handled his problem, that was another story. That was wrong. But let's look at his problem. His problem is give me a non-game show answer for the non-game show thing I just said to you. And Greg says, and she claims, then she drops the bombshell that he's an actor. And these are things that she has found out online. Okay. She has looked these things up. They even have to explain to the audience. Caitlin and Tayshia have to act like we don't know. They go, do you, for those that don't know, Greg took acting classes. And then Katie says, well, it's not even about you being an actor. You can come on the show and be an actor, but I don't know if anything you did was real. You must have been. And it's like, Greg makes the point to say, I'm not Meryl Streep. Like, and what he means by that is to say, how good of an actor do you think I am to take you all the way to seeing my family, tell my mom I want to get engaged, and then bail? And also the other, we're going to get to that in the awards. So I understand. And then Greg actually makes a point where he says, and this is the point that comes up when Katie says, I'm afraid that, Blake, you're not going to like love me. And it goes back to what Katie's mindset is. Greg says relationships are a two-way street. We both have to want each other. And it seems as though Katie wants someone who is going to go to no is only going to chase her. And that's kind of what it came down to, because when you look at when Blake comes out at the end, Blake, she's one of the questions Caitlin and Tayshia ask. They go, how, what do you think of Blake coming on a second time to find love? And like Katie's like, that's what she liked about him, is that he was fighting for her. And it's like, I that's like a nice thing to say, but when you start thinking deeper of it, you go, oh, that's what she just wanted. She wanted someone who was going to go fight in this, this thunderdome of dating called the Bachelorette. And Greg was looking for, hey, I'm looking for match here. I'm looking for you to match me. And Katie was looking to be matched. It's interesting. It's interesting, and it's going to form. Everyone's going to have their own opinions. I didn't think it made Katie look good to harp on it and get angry. I mean, it's okay to be angry, but it's another thing to like look for answers and then be like, I'm perfectly happy. It's like, are you? Like, it doesn't seem like this is in the past for you. So we come to the end. Blake comes out for his interview. Blake, pours affection on Katie. It's all the stuff you would expect. And then they end with their song, and everyone holds up radios, and we all shed a tear. That was our episode. Let's give out some awards. The Batchies is where I give out roses to my favorite characters and divorce papers to my least favorite characters from the episode. We'll start with the roses. My first rose is going to go to maple syrup. Maple syrup, you established yourself as a sex item. We never thought you had it in you. We thought you were too sticky. You got a huge plug on this episode. Good for you. I mean, they even woke up in the morning. They couldn't even make eye contact with the maple syrup. It was as if they had a threesome with it. Maple syrup, putting yourself on the map as a sexual food item. Good for you. The next is going to go to the audience in the dome of the Undateables. There's nothing I love more than the dome of the Undateables. That is the audience that sits in the studio to watch the last episode. They're on every word. They're crying. It looks like every time they show someone's face, it looks like they're going to get up and tell their dating story. Well, when I was dating Bob, he told me the same thing and I said I deserve more. And it's like, I love everyone in the dome. They are the best. They react so wildly to everything that's going on. They're excited. They're happy to be there. They love love, and I love that about them. The last rose, it's going to go to Greg. I wasn't a fan of Greg all season. I thought, he stood in the background. He felt overly sensitive. He showed that. But when he was put to task with answering the questions, he answered he answered the questions. He looked at them. He said, "I'm looking to be met here. I'm looking for my match." And I thought his responses made perfect sense to me. I did think he needed to apologize for how he acted. He kind of did once he got, told to do it. But then I really thought his answers made sense as far as why he left the show. My first divorce paper is going to go to Aunt Lindsay. Aunt Lindsay, come on. You were mean to Blake. You came on the show with your own problems and you put them on Blake. You acted like entrance into your family was the hardest thing to earn in the world. For what? For what? Is there a big safe with gold bullion with the Thurston name on it? You got to look at a guy and tell him that he flunked twice on another show as if he should be thankful for being there with Katie. It again, this is a two-way street, as Greg said. I hate to reference Greg, but this is a match we're looking for. He's telling you, I love your niece. And you're saying, what's going to happen when things get hard? He doesn't know what's going to happen. He's going to feed you some bullshit, and you couldn't even let him have that. You had to let him know no answer is good enough. And I would have to ask, what is good enough? And if you're going to sit there and be judgmental of the guy, why don't you say, hey, how do you make money? How do you pay rent? Those are good questions. Making it so everything he said was wrong, it seemed mean and it seemed like it came from a self-conscious place. Next divorce paper is going to go to Katie. I'm a Katie fan. I thought she was great all season. I think she got too caught up with sticking to being fair and rules. And it goes back to how she got on the show in the first place. She was the one that reported on the bullying from Matt's season, and now it transfers over to here. So I'm going to be good at every turn. I'm going to reward boldness. I'm going to reward the people that share things with me. And I'm not going to reward the people that I actually like, the people that I actually form connections with. And when she finally did it, it was when at the way end, when there was really only one guy left anyways. So, and then, she comes on, with Greg, and I understand she's angry about what happened, but it felt like she came on to embarrass him and not really to get closure. The last divorce paper, Tayshia and Kaitlyn. Tayshia and Kaitlyn, I mean, the whole season, from beginning to end, it felt like they were looking to make this a show about them. And then the minute these two get engaged, they go, look we did it. That's right. We put them together. We're basically matchmakers. Then Kaitlyn can never hide when she's judging someone. She looks at Katie's ring. She's like, oh, it's interesting. When someone tells you your ring is interesting, that means it's small and not what I would like. When someone tastes food and they go, this tastes interesting, that means they don't like the food. Kaitlyn, just say it looks beautiful. That's all you have to say. You don't have, oh, it looks so good on your small hands. Everything was a passive aggressive thing. And it just was so, and then the minute this is the episode where the host is important. And Greg and Katie are having their big moment, and they stop it midway through to go, we have to take a commercial. This is a taped show. It's not live. You don't have to stop to take a commercial. What are you talking about? You're stopping this conversation in the middle of it? The only reason we're watching this finale. Let's get to the questions. Do you think Katie and Greg would have lasted if they would have ended up together? Clearly, they don't have the same communication styles, and it was a cringy to watch. I don't think they would have ended up engaged. I think they would have ended up engaged and breaking up. I think that they would have figured out very quickly that, Katie would have wanted him to be obsessed with her, and Greg would have wanted, would have not really been a good person to argue with, and for him to not see that he looked bad last on that episode. Yeah, I don't think they are. I don't think he's ready. I don't think he's mature enough to enter into a relationship like that, and I don't think she would have liked how he how he would have been in the relationship. It didn't look like it would have worked. Let's go to another one. Do you think Katie really wanted to end up with Blake, or did things just start to derail and she was basically stuck with him? I don't think she was stuck with him. I think it goes into a lot of what she said in her fears and a lot of what she said in the end. It seems like she needed a guy who was going to literally do anything and everything just to be with her. And it wasn't that she was looking like, I think that's when it comes down to, like, are you looking for the relationship or are you looking for the right person for the relationship? I think she was looking for the relationship, and where someone, a guy like Blake, who's not really going to get too heady, to just go, I like you, you and me. Now we have sex. Now we together. Like it's, Blake is very cavemanish in that way. Let's do one more. Which nightmare is worse, the aunt or the statue? I gotta say, that aunt. If I was approached like that, I would end it right there. That would be enough for me. I would go, you know what? Good luck. I wouldn't have been as classy as Blake was, and Blake was really nice about it. There it is. What a great season. I want to thank you guys for being a part of this. I want to thank you for watching the live stream. I want to thank you for subscribing to this channel and commenting and being involved all season. We'll see you next season. Boom.